So effective networking. What is it? What is networking itself to start off with? I see it as about building relationships. And yes, you have got copies of the slides if you want to take notes there. There's also another sheet on your tables, that's the word, if you want to use those as just to write some things down. But about building relationships. How easy is networking? Go on, you've got to speak to me. With that sort of like...
Yeah, that's transparent.
Well, it's one of those, like, networking's not... It should be easy, but it isn't, was what it was sort of saying to me.
Yes.
So, Carmel, tell me.
I find that one of the most difficult things when we go to... I mean, I can talk to anybody and I can talk all day, but it's that purposeful conversation, the one conversation at a time, which is one of the things that stuck out to me.
Yeah.
And sort of putting yourself in that place where, you know, you're positively portraying yourself, but also engaging with others and trying to be that person that's able to get information that's going to enhance what you do somehow.
Mm-hmm. It does.
And quite honestly, I'm not that great at small talk, so very often I walk in and think, oh, I just need to sit down and do
Yeah.
be ready for whatever the session is. I think getting to wander around and introducing myself. I find it difficult.
No, that's good. Thank you. Because you think it's just talking to people and you think that's what we're used to doing, wouldn't you? But somehow it's not as easy because does anybody see it as contrived in certain situations? Yes, good. Thank you. Yeah. Who finds it easy? Does anybody find networking easy? It's building relationships. Somehow this contrived can lead to a level of false. You're not authentic. You're not really you. You're trying to get what you want out of the discussion. And it's interesting, isn't it, when that happens? So I think the problem with networking is the fact that it's got labelled networking, if I'm honest. Because if you were asked to just go and have a chat with someone without any purpose behind it, you'd probably be okay doing it. You might say, well, actually, I'm not that great at small talk, but you'd find something to do it with. Or you'd let the other person instigate that conversation. But somehow when we put this label of networking, it becomes more onerous. So I'd just like to demystify and give you a few hints and tips and thoughts on networking. And I've been speaking on this as a topic since November 2000. I spoke at a conference held in Cambridge, run by the Junior Chamber. JCI is an organisation for those in their 20s and 30s that want to develop leadership management skills. And I spoke at their leadership conference in Cambridge in November 2000, just after I'd set up my business. Previously, I worked for Barclays on their training team, and they said, would you come and do a session on networking? Because I'd had to do it when I worked for Barclays. I'd had to do it through my membership of other organisations as well and promote just me, but equally what the bank was doing and those sorts of things. So I thought, okay, I'll happily run a session on networking. So I went to do my research, and I decided at that point, we didn't have the Google, so you go down and you use the library and you ask for books on network. I know this is a novel concept these days, but you ask for books on networking at the library. And they sent me to the computer section. Because at that time, networking was where it was the computer network. But if you think about it, when a computer is networked, it's connected up with lots of other things. When you are networked, you're also connected up with lots of other people, groups. LinkedIn enables you to see who's in your immediate network, second and third connections. So it's a way of finding out. So networking is about connections. But equally, it's not just about making connections, it's about somehow managing to build that relationship. But what happens is, when you label it as networking, you get the barriers that crop up. So barriers to networking would be what? Give me some thoughts. What barriers are there to networking? We've got one already. I'm no good at small talk. What else happens in your mind to stop you enjoying networking? Yeah, worrying you might not have anything interesting to say. Why would they want to speak to me? Okay. What else?
Expectations.
Okay, it's interesting. Expectations that we think they think.
They think that we think.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? But you don't actually openly say it. So, yeah, just perceptions in the mind. What else can be a barrier to networking?
About a closed attitude.
So, again, yours, and close, I love the way you folded your arms then, absolutely. And it's like, yeah, I've got to, and I've been sent.
Yeah.
Mm.
There's something about never failing. So LinkedIn is the place where nobody fails, isn't it? So actually you have to be very upbeat and positive. That's the perception, isn't
It is, and I think also Facebook's certainly turning into that as well from a social rather than business perspective. But yes, you put out the good stuff, you don't put out the stuff that's not. And when you meet someone and they ask, hi, how are you? Does anybody actually say, well, I'm having a bit of a crap, it's pardon the French here, but I'm having a bit of a crap day. You know, things aren't going well, but, you know, I am sorting it. But yeah, just at the moment, it's not good. Does anybody actually say that? Because if you do, good on you. There's that level of honesty. There's that level of honesty that we think we should have everything fine. And when you're networking, who wants to speak to someone who's looking down in the dumps, though?
Then does that person, because sometimes you can be honest and say, yeah, I had a really garbage day, and then you'll actually get feedback from somewhere else saying, well, you know, you said to so-and-so that you were having a rubbish day, she didn't really want to know. And actually, you do, you know, I've heard people be honest with someone and say, yeah, actually, I'm having a really bad day, I've been in the room. And then that person goes out and she says, oh, she's always moaning, she's not having a bad day.
Yeah.
And you think, well,
Actually, you just
asked her
asked.
how she felt,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But I am quite confrontational, and I actually didn't go at that person, but I said, hang on, you just asked her how she felt, so why are you moaning about
Yes.
that she wasn't happy?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's very, very good point. And equally, if you're going to share your rubbish day or what you're really feeling, there are times and places. And the first time you meet someone, it's not the opportunity to do it. And it's there's times and places and certain people that you would share it with more effectively. Yes. Yeah. So I think there's just finding who you can be honest, who you can trust is really important. But sometimes knowing that you're having that rubbish day can be a barrier to you wanting to network. So who came in here this morning and sat next to someone that they knew? Little table over there, a little table over there, and a little table over. See, this is what happens when you're networking. If you're having, I'm not saying you're having rubbish days, but just it's this feeling of safety as well. It's the opportunity just to catch up with someone that you wanted to catch up with, for a start, but also it's sometimes safe when you sit next to someone that you've already met before. I am going to ask you to move around now. You have all met the people on your tables, so I'm just going to, I know, you just got yourself settled. Oh, how awful. Notice the feelings. Just notice, because this is what happens again in the workplace. When you ask someone to do something different and they've just got themselves settled into that routine and you disrupt it. Yeah, so I'm disrupting it. You could just acknowledge your feelings, and that's fine by me. And I'm going to ask our three speakers also to come and join in. We'll stick with these main 5 tables. And so just find someone else to sit with, somewhere else to sit, and then sit yourselves down and think about why. When you've sat down, the question to ask is, why would you network? Okay? So move yourselves around. Okay. Quick, short and sweet, I know. But why would you network? Because it's interesting. When I use this and do this with people that are in business, they tend to come out with to sell something. Okay? You're in a different position, a different situation. So beginning with your end in mind, why would you want to network?
We said it was about sharing ideas and actually not reinventing wheels, which was Sue's comment.
Lovely.
Borrowing ideas from each other.
Yeah, sharing ideas so you don't reinvent that wheel. Yeah, excellent. And support. Yes, so finding someone else who either has dealt with that situation before, or could it just at least give you that moral courage and encouragement to deal with whatever the situation is you're dealing with. Yeah, okay, so support, sharing ideas.
And we've all got the same goal, really, haven't we, which is the patient experience. That's what we're all channeling towards everything that we're doing. to down the bottom.
Yeah. And even when you're talking strategically, coming back to the earlier point that was made about people from ministers and all the way down, that ultimate goal of the patient experience is still in everybody's minds. Yeah, thank you. Any other reasons? Any other thoughts?
For me, sorry, my voice
That's
is
all right,
really
you can-
loud today. I think for me, not only around how to develop areas that I look after, and I think selfishly for me, what can I do? How can I progress? How can I tap into other people
Yeah.
to move on? Because that's part of my career progression.
Yes. So for your own self and for your career progression, so how can you learn something that's going to help you develop? Brilliant. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Anything we've missed? Where would you network?
We
No.
talked about that.
Yes.
We talked about social media as
Yeah.
probably much more common as a. So you talked about LinkedIn. You talked
Yeah.
about all of those
My
social
next.
media sites.
Yep.
And certainly business. That's big business, isn't it?
Yes.
It's actually how to get your message.
Yeah.
And I sometimes ring people and they say, "Oh, you're ringing me." So
I love that. Ring people, and people are surprised now to receive a phone call. Isn't it interesting? Because so many times it is, and I've done this, it's so easy to hide behind the email and say, oh, well, I'll just reply to it. And I can do it out of hours and then that's off my desk or off my inbox or whatever you want to think of, however you want to think about it. But actually sending it out of hours, sometimes if the other person's on email, then implies that they think you think they should reply to it, yeah, out of hours. It might give that impression. But also it doesn't make a connection. It's not building those relationships, just emailing. And picking up the phone, even though it may be that you have to leave a voicemail a couple of times to catch someone, it can be very, very powerful. And it's like going back to sending handwritten thank you notes from a number of years ago. I know emails tend to be thank you notes now as well, but they don't have that same impact. And phone calls are now having the impact that handwritten thank you notes had, I think. Do you agree with me? So just think about how you can do that relationship building. So yes, social media being one. You don't have to be on all of these sites. And if you are on Twitter, you don't have to tweet. You can be a lurker and a follower rather than a tweeter. Seriously. No, I didn't say stalker. I said lurker. I heard stalker. Sorry, you said stalker. That wasn't your fault. No, I didn't say, but you can be a lurker and a follower on Twitter. And there's some really useful stuff that comes out from the NHS on Twitter. And it's not just in those 140 characters. The value of Twitter now is in the links that are included in the tweets. So seriously, do think about it. Talk to people who are. But you don't have to have this pressure to tweet, okay? Just look at following a few important folks from the NHS's point of view. There's ways of learning things, talking about career progression, picking up what other people are saying that's important, jobs that go out. So there's lots of things you can do through Twitter. LinkedIn as well, making sure your LinkedIn profile's up to date is another place people do look to find out about people. The rest of it, gosh, you could spend hours doing. I don't, personally. I'm learning, apparently, Google Plus is the next thing to promote a business, and you've really got to be on there. Yeah, exactly. That's my that face says it. That said my thoughts, totally. I'm with you, Leslie. Because what you can't do everything. So you only have a finite amount of time. And if I'm honest, I'd say LinkedIn, lurk on Twitter, and then do more of this stuff. Do more of the people meeting. Get the opportunities. Picking up the phone's another great example, but just have the chance to talk. And when you go places, don't just talk to those that you know. Break that barrier that's in your head, because someone will be relieved that you've gone up and spoken to them. Did that happen this morning when somebody perhaps came and spoke to you and you went, oh, somebody's come to speak to me, that's nice. You might not consciously think it, but yeah, thank you. It does, doesn't it? And it gives you that little bit of, oh, that's that's nice. So think about that, the receiving end, not just you feeling nervous about giving it, but you're actually encouraging someone else and making them feel good. So that's one of the reasons to continue to network. So let me give you a little bit of a challenge, and I'd like you to, you probably got this, the secrets are away in the slides. So anyway, I'd like you to now, everybody stand up. Thank you. Right, so take your seats again. You can sit near your partner now. That means you've moved again. Ooh. Oh, well, that's all right then. How did you find, and now this is a contrived thing, but I asked you to make assumptions. How close were you? Was anybody close to their guesses? Colin was very close, yes, to the guess, yeah. It's interesting what you can surmise from a handshake. Now, you said yoga, but actually I do Pilates, so you're very close, very close.
But I wouldn't have done it from the handshake, it was just the other.
Exactly. It's not just the handshake, is it? No. The handshake is your way to just say hello, really. You do it from the other, and tell me what the other is.
Well, it's the body language and the replies from other.
You into the conversation as you start. You don't even realise you're saying things and you give things away.
Yes. Yeah. So you don't realise you're saying things, but you're then giving things away. Yes, this start of a conversation happens, doesn't it? Where does it come from? Where do we make these assumptions? Well, I'm going to suggest they come from 3 V's, okay, which would be something for you to remember. And the handshake is important. If particularly you shake hands with people that you meet for the first time, it's really important to get a good handshake. So let's just go through these and then we'll talk about the handshake briefly. So the verbal, so what you say is part of it. So how positive is the language that you use? How upbeat are you in the way in which you say it, that vocal intonation? And then there's a lot about the way in which you look. So you give things away through these 3 channels. So it's what you're saying, how you're saying it, and the way in which you look when you say it. Or just general physical appearance, expectations. And what can happen is that there's a mismatch that goes on. And at times you say, well, it's really nice to see you, or I'm having a great day. Do you believe those 2? No. Partly there's a sign in the way in which it's said, there's a role of the eyes, the facial expression. It doesn't match up. So you can use the correct words, but the rest all leaks out. What you're actually thinking underneath comes out. And particularly in your role from the leadership point of view, people that you're working with, and also just think about the patients. If you're having that sort of like, oh gosh, here's another one. Okay. And you need to somehow make yourself into this position of being congruent with the body language, with what you're saying, and with how you're saying it. Because if you're...
First impression, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Because when I did the course, not all the groups did it, but our group, our cohort leader, she made us all write down on the first day our first impression of everybody within the group.
Yeah.
And that was really quite interesting.
So you write down that first impression. And it is very interesting how people will get, sunny personality or upbeat or feeling down, or they'll write something. And it depends how much courage you have to write something that's not positive. Most people look for something that's positive to write for people. But you're going, I'm not sure.
But it was harder for the people who actually left it a couple of days before they did it, because she didn't do it on the first day. Whereas I actually did mine on the first day before I knew the people.
Yeah.
Which made it easier.
Yeah. And that first impression you do get, and you make assumptions. Would you like to?
One of the things that Nicholas, I can't remember his surname. Yeah.
Nicholas Bradbury.
Yeah. He said to us in his very first introduction, and we all were sitting round the edge of the room. There was 80 of us or 40 of us sitting round the edge of the room. And he said to us, now I want you to be totally honest, this is a safe environment. How many of you walk on the ward or your workplace and see someone and you think, oh, yeah, I've got to work with them today. And, he said, just think about that. Don't turn it into a negative, turn it into a positive, and be that support for that person.
Yeah.
And, that really did change. That was one of the pivotal things that I've taken back. And then the second was about what you can do, not what you can't do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about attitude and the verbal, you know, oh, I've got to do that again today.
Yeah.
I did it yesterday, checked it, I know it's all there.
Yeah.
But it's about, okay, let's show you how to do that today. And then, you know, you can do it the next time.
Yeah.
You know, rather than, oh, it's my responsibility.
Yeah. It's landing on my shoulders again. Yeah.
Like, give me a broom and,
Mm.
you know,
Mm.
I'll clear up behind me as well.
Yeah.
So, you know,
And
it's about that verbal and that visual and being a positive rather than negative
yes.
in that approach, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. Coming back to the barriers, the mindsets, the way in which you think, all affects those 3 V's that come out. So yeah, absolutely.
Also sharing the burden, isn't it?
Yes.
Do you know, because you tend to think, well, I can't give that to them because they're going to be late off. But then why should you be an hour or 2 hours late off when if you share the burden, everybody could be 5 minutes late?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Totally. So and this is about. I was reading a blog somewhere about being kind and being nice, and sometimes there's a difference between nice isn't necessarily right. Sometimes kind, and you need to be firm and kind at times to actually truly be kind, rather than just be nice. And being nice is saying, oh well, I won't give that. I'll keep it all to myself and not share this burden. But sometimes it's kinder to everyone to do that sharing.
But sometimes if you share the task, it actually empowers the other person, and actually it's beneficial.
Yeah.
So you're not actually negative. Because you give them an extra thing to do, it's actually not necessarily negative. They think, oh,
I've
she
got some
really
more
trusts me.
responsibility.
How wonderful is
Yes.
that? She must think I'm a really great person.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas your mindset thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't ask them to do that extra piece. Yeah. Yeah. So just come back to handshakes as well, and this very thing about first impressions and eye contact as well. Eye contact and smiling also being really important. I'd like you to deliberately shake hands with someone, but Paul, can I borrow you just for a moment again? I'm going to shake your hand, and I'd like your feedback on this handshake. So nice to meet you. How are you doing?
My feedback would be that you didn't really want to shake my hand. You couldn't really be bothered. So.
Yeah, couldn't be bothered. So therefore, if I met you and gave you that type of a handshake, how much would you trust me, do you think?
I would dismiss you to an aspect of the rest of our conversation until you could prove to me that actually you were interested in what we were doing. So.
Until you could prove to me. So there's a level of now proof required. All I did, for those of you who didn't see, is actually just take the fingers as opposed to the hand. It's the Queen. Well, I haven't shaken hands with the Queen, so I wouldn't know. But from your experience, it's the Queen. Yeah. But it is interesting. Whereas some people do give limp handshakes, even if you shake the hand, but you don't actually hold the hand. That sort of is a bit wet lettucey, isn't it? And it doesn't help. So just think what you're aiming for with your handshake is to take it thumb web to thumb web. You don't want to be fingers out. You want to be there. And you want to actually grasp the hand and shake it a little bit, not lots, because if you shake it too much or if you put your hands over here, this is a bit patronising.
It actually pushes you away.
Say that again?
The Queen, when she shakes your hand, I believe, because my brother's met her, is she shakes your hand and then she pushes away.
Pushes away, because she's able
So
to
end of handshake.
dismiss.
That's what she does. She shakes.
Thank you.
And my
Yeah.
brother said, because he's obviously had a couple of medals, and that's how he knows. He says she shakes your hands, quite a firm handshake, and then she.
And then she's moving on,
She doesn't always shake hands. Sometimes you're told
whether or not she will.
whether she will or not. So she doesn't
Okay.
always.
Now, aside from the Queen, let's go back to other people's handshakes. It's really interesting to hear how, but equally in her position, she can choose whether or not she shakes hands, and that aspect of pushing somebody away to just say, I've finished now. What are you wanting to convey with your handshakes? Commitment. Okay, what else? Trust. Empathy. Yeah. A balance.
Say that sometimes, I'm small, I'm sure people have said that, is that you find that people will automatically, their strength, they don't know their own strength, and actually they can quite hurt you if they give that strong handshake.
Yeah.
Sort of,
Yeah.
you have to do it quite so
Yeah.
firmly.
But equally, those of you who deal with the frailer end of patients, they also don't want a firm handshake. So you've got to adjust it accordingly. But thinking about conveying that balance, conveying that trust, conveying that connection leads me into the next point that I want to make from the slides. And this is the hello, my name is. You'll have probably heard of that through Dr. Kate Granger as well. And it's making this real introduction. It doesn't have to be a handshake. Because sometimes you think, well, actually, if I shake hands, then I've got to do all of this thinking about the germ transmissions and blah, blah, blah. I don't know what goes on, but I don't mind if somebody doesn't shake my hand from an NHS perspective, but I do mind if they don't tell me their names or if they don't give me a greeting. And in the last 12, actually it's coming up to sort of 12, 18, 15 months, my husband and I have both been in and out of hospital. I had just a really small minor op, and he's had prostate cancer, and we're going back for the 12-month checkup this Friday. So fingers crossed all will be well. It's looking good so far. But we've had quite a number of visits, as you can imagine, with some of that going on. So I've seen a little bit about what works well and what doesn't. And it doesn't have to be this big connection of a handshake and a massive greeting, but it does need to be eye contact and a name. And it's surprising how often that doesn't happen. That's just the little bits of experience that I've had. So really think about that is balance of power too, with the patient and the professional. Because the trust, they need to trust you. And so it's really interesting how that helps. Now, when you're networking within your profession, so with your colleagues, that's different. But it's still important to use names. So just think about how you might do that introduction professionally and include it and really make that connection. So that's the focus and make real connections. That the eye contact in particular when you're telling somebody something that's about them personally and their health, it makes a big difference. And have you ever been networking where someone has mentioned your name or something you are interested in and you've heard it whilst you're in the midst of a conversation? Has that happened to you? Yeah? What happens then to your focus? It gets switched, yes? Have you seen it happen to someone you've been talking to? Yeah? What do you think when you're in that conversation and you're on the receiving end of somebody losing their focus? That you don't matter. They're bored now. They need to move on. So how could you deal with the loss of focus yourself? What I'd suggest you do, there's a level of honesty. Now, a level of honesty. Because if you've lost focus because you're bored, I'm not going to suggest you say, right, okay, I'm moving on. You're boring me now. But what I am going to suggest is if you've heard someone talk about something that you're really interested in, is just say, oh, actually, I've just heard them mention blah, blah, blah. You've got a choice then. I'll catch up with you later, or it's been really nice talking to you, thanks and goodbye. Or I'll catch them in a minute and let's just finish what we've been talking about. But I would suggest that level of honesty in the connection, because otherwise the conversation and that connection's been broken and they've lost that trust and thought, I'm not sure what's going on here. So that's my take on when you lose that focus, just to take the opportunity to make that quick decision. Am I going to follow it through and say it's been really nice talking to you and move on? Or am I going to catch up with them later and just explain what happened and then acknowledge it and be real in that moment? What do you think about that as an idea? Think it's feasible? Has anybody done it before just naturally? Because it was a slight nod of the, yeah, you think you probably have done that. There's a level of naturalness in it. But just think about it. When you're networking, it seems to be more contrived and you seem to think you have to stay focused. We can't, we're human. So I recognise all of that too. So what I'd like to do now is just think about the final thing is the follow-up. And just go to, when you have been networking, if you've promised somebody something, make sure you do follow up. That's one of the really important things. There are some other slides, but I'd like to jump to slide 20, please, Danny. So he's now just, I think it's 20 on the, that's it. Great stuff. So the last one, I'd like you to think of an opportunity now to network here in this room, and it will continue over the form of coffee break in a bit. But is there an area you would like support with? So it could be an issue that you're dealing with from a staffing point of view. It could be something very personal to you. It could be something that's a very practical, how do I do X, or introduce this new system or process or whatever it is. But find an area that you'd like support with and take a piece of paper. The back side of the networking worksheet would be fine. And just write down at the top, what thing would you like support with? So, okay. So there's two things that I'd like to happen. One is for you to watch a very short video. And then what I'd like you to do is to continue the conversations over coffee and come back at 1:45. 5 minutes, 10 to? 10 to. Is that all right? So if we could have the video on, so just stay where you are and just
If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore. It's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. See, it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out and you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut and it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point, and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute, you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is over-glorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
That's the power of the internet for you. You can just Google it, get it up there, and we're on. So thank you for mentioning it. That's the ones for those of you who haven't seen it. Coffee break, opportunity to take the chance to continue those conversations, and we'll reconvene at 10:02. Thank you.